Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we have not talked very much about this election in Missouri, but it is a very pressing one, and the primary is going to be coming up on August 2nd, which is the same day that you have Arizona, you have Michigan, you have Washington State, and you have Kansas. So I wanted to dive into this because it's a very competitive primary and you have several candidates in the race, which unlike many other fields we've seen, like Pennsylvania, like Ohio minus Vance, I actually don't think that these candidates are like all bad, honestly. You don't have anybody that's like, oh, this person is an obvious rhino that we have to avoid. Now, there are problems with some of these candidates, and we'll talk about that, but it's interesting that the Missouri bench is not the worst in the world. And that's kind of surprising in this day and age, given what we've really been through this cycle so far. But the truth is that there is a certain candidate in this race that is being unfairly sidelined and shafted by a lot of neocons, by a lot of establishment people, for reasons that are completely untrue. And it's because he's the best candidate by far, and I'm going to explain that in this video. But first, I wanted to tell you guys about shop.redeaglepolitics.com. The merch store is going to be shutting down for a little while, so everything must go. We have t-shirts, we have coffee mugs, sweatshirts, posters, tank tops, etc. We've got all these epic designs, and everything must go, so make sure you check it out. The link is going to be in the description as well as the pinned comment down below. So I wanted to dive into this and talk about each candidate. And then we're going to get into the plot against one of the candidates, Eric Greitens. But we'll start off by talking about Vicky Hartzler. Vicky Hartzler is somebody who is really good on domestic policy. However, when it comes to foreign policy, she's not so good. She's essentially like a female Tom Cotton. And while Tom Cotton is one of the better senators overall in the U.S. Senate, I feel like Hartzler would, not exactly be up to par with what we potentially could have, as well as the fact that she's been a heavy shill for, sending money to Ukraine, which that's kind of her liability, even though she is good on several other issues. I feel like we could do better than that, and we can in this race because there are better options. But if Hartzler somehow wins the nomination, you're still going to get an overall upgrade from Roy Blunt, and I can't stress that enough. Because in a lot of these other races, it's like, are we going to have a downgrade? That question mark is there. In this cycle, in Missouri, no. Roy Blunt, total rhino, total neocon. All four of these candidates are better despite Hartzler's weak spots on foreign policy. But furthermore, Billy Long, he doesn't really have a chance in the primary. He seems like he's a nice guy overall. He was an auctioneer. And then he was a congressman. He was an early backer of Trump in, I think, 2015 maybe even, before the primaries even started. But at the end of the day, I don't believe he really has a chance to win. He's in a distant fourth in nearly every poll. And like I said, I think that there is a better option on the table. And Eric Schmidt, this guy, now here's a guy who is surprisingly not even that bad on the issues. He's not exactly perfect because he has not committed to opposing Mitch McConnell, and he also used to be a never-Trumper back in the 2016 primaries, which again, I don't really think that that's necessarily an automatic non-starter. It's a lot different than being never Trump last year like David McCormick, or even being never Trump until 2018 like J.D. Vance was, even though Vance has proved himself a great deal. Schmidt has also proved himself a great deal since then. He's been a very solid attorney general. He's been solid on most issues, and if he wins the primary, I would enthusiastically support him for the general because he would be an upgrade over Roy Blunt for sure. Schmidt's good on immigration. He's good on a wide variety of issues. Was tough on crime as AG. And then you have Eric Greitens. Now, Eric Greitens is an America First warrior and has been so ever since 2016. And he's somebody who had drained the swamp in Missouri, or at least tried to. The swamp ended up draining him at the end of the day, which we'll get to that in a second, but he's been very tough on immigration. He wants to go out there and get rid of McConnell, and he is somebody who has been an unabashed fighter on all the issues, and he's somebody that's been wronged by the system, and he will be a firebrand that will bring that wrecking ball to Washington. And that is exactly what the appeal was for Trump 2016, and that is exactly the appeal of Eric Greitens. Now, the question mark surrounding Eric Greitens is his eluctability, as they'll put it, because there are allegations, sexual abuse allegations against Eric Greitens. However, it is true that there have been found that there is zero evidence of wrongdoing for Eric Greitens. This is true. Time and time again. You could read article after article. The charges were put on and then he resigned. The same reason why Sean Parnell stepped out of the Pennsylvania Senate race for his family. And then after that, the charges were dropped. Time and time again, this has continued. So the fact that this guy's like a proven rapist or a sexual abuser, there is literally no proof for that. And it's funny because there's so many people in the GOP establishment that, in 2018, they stood by Brett Kavanaugh as they should have. But when it comes to somebody that's like a major threat to the system, somebody like Eric Greitens, they won't exactly back him. Instead, they'll act like the most rabid Me Too feminists in the entire world surrounding this guy because they just blindly believe the narrative. And the truth is that he drained the swamp. He cut, the pay, he killed pay raises of a lot of these bureaucratic officials. Many of them are liberals, by the way. And he was backed into a corner, and the same people launched the investigation after him, and they made him resign. And when he quit, and when he stepped down, he was eventually dismissed on pretty much all of the charges, virtually exonerated. And time again, they're just pulling all the stops out on this guy. They're throwing all the money they can at this race to stop Greitens because Greitens is a true threat to the system. This is true. And there are going to be questions about his electability. I actually do believe that he would underperform some of the other candidates because the allegations are there, even if they are false. And they may turn off some independents. It really depends who the Democrat nominee is. But still, the guy will probably win by more than 10 points. This is not 2012. He's not Todd Akin 2.0, okay? He's really not. And Todd Akin was an awful candidate from the start. A lot of people don't understand this. And given the polling error in Missouri in 2012, even before he made that comment, he probably would have lost as well. He just was not a strong candidate. Greitens is somebody who will ride the red wave to probably around a 10-point victory. This is 2022. We're more polarized now, and I feel like a lot of people will have to get in line in the GOP establishment and probably brush off the allegations. The same people that, like I said, when it comes to a lot of their people that get accused of sexual assault or abuse or whatever, they'll stand by them. But if it's somebody that's a threat to the system, they won't. And that's why I support Eric Greitens. It's the same thing they did with Matt Gaetz to a lesser extent, but Greitens is a far more effective threat to the system overall. And it's so true. And beyond that point, Karl Rove was going around alerting donors of his wife's testimony before it happened, and then denied that, and then eventually admitted it when it was convenient for him. There's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that just point to the fact that Greitens is likely innocent. So the real question is Greitens going to win the primary? What did the polls have to say about this? Because he was up in the polls for quite some time, and a lot of neocons were shaking in their boots. But right now, over the past month or two, Greitens has fallen a little bit. Right now, he's down to Eric Schmidt in the aggregate. Eric Schmidt is at 33. Greitens is at 19. And that's because of the psyops that have been running against Greitens. Greitens fell in Trafalgar a significant amount as well. I mean, he was tied. Now he's down by 7 points. So a lot of Greitens voters are switching to Eric Schmidt. Trump had not made an endorsement in this race. I don't even know if he will at this point because the primary is like 6 days away. I mean, you would expect a Trump endorsement to come out within a day or two. If it does, maybe by the time I upload this, Trump will have endorsed in this race. Other than that, he's likely going to stay out of it. But knowing that Trump looks at this, and even though Trump likes all the candidates except Hartzler, and he sees Greitens falling, if he does endorse, he probably is going to endorse Eric Schmidt. Which again, Eric Schmidt is not that bad, I think. I think we could do a lot better, and I think Greitens is a much bigger threat to the system. But I think Schmidt might actually win the primary because people have a lot of concerns about Greitens' electability or whatever. Even though he would still win the general, albeit by less. But either way, the charges that were levied against him were nonsense. And he is somebody who you could even say is a martyr to the swamp in Jefferson City. And I hope he seeks higher office again. If he does go down, we'll see what happens. But you have a lot of money pouring in at the last minute. Same thing we're seeing in a place like Arizona. But I think that I'm very confident that Kari Lake is going to end up winning that primary there in Arizona. So could Greitens still win despite him being down in the polls? It might be possible, because look at this. In the 2016 governor's election primary, Greitens was essentially tied or down in a lot of these polls. St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Mason-Dixon had Greitens down in the final poll with 17% undecided. A lot of, recent polling kind of, you could even say, mirrors the undecided percentage. Could that go to Eric Greitens now? It's possible. I don't know. It's also possible there might be some form of a Bradley effect in the polling. People that are calling up saying, do you support Greitens? Some of the polls, I'm sure, have been asked via some leading questions about Greitens being, under fire for sexual assault or whatever they want to label it as. But either way, I think the chance is there. I'm not going to say that I'm as hopeful for Greitens winning the primary as I was a couple of weeks ago. I think Schmidt is honestly favored numbers-wise, but still, Greitens outperformed the polling significantly. Greitens won by 10. He either led the polls by a couple of points or so, or he was down in the polls in terms of the final polls that came out of this election. I don't really think Survey USA is usually on the mark most of the time. Their polling is very volatile, but you're looking at St. Louis Post-Dispatch. That's a local pollster, 400 people in the sample size only, but it had Greitens down, and Greitens ended up winning by 10. So it's possible. I'm not saying it's not, but we'll have to see. It is true that the sample sizes of the polls are much higher now, so we'll just really have to wait and see what happens. But Greitens is somebody who could still pull it off, and I hope he does, because he is a fighter. He is somebody that we desperately need in the Senate. If Eric Schmidt wins the primary, I will still support him, but I hope that he can, stick to his guns and maybe go out there and, decide it's probably a good idea to get McConnell out of leadership. But will he do that? I don't know. I haven't seen enough evidence that he will, because he hasn't committed to it in a primary where it probably would help him to commit to it, and he's really not doing that. And that's kind of the main red flag with Eric Schmidt. I still think that he'll be much better than Roy Blunt. I think anybody in this race pretty much will be better than Roy Blunt. People are going to ask, why haven't you covered Mark McCloskey? Because he became famous for the whole BLM standoff outside of his house in 2020. He came out carrying the gun, defended his property from the protesters, and now he's running for Senate. And he's just down at 5%. Billy Long has more of a chance than he does. I don't really expect anybody to have a chance at winning this other than Schmidt, Greitens, or Hartzler. So we will see what happens in this primary. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. And make sure you sign up for the website and check out the merch store. The links are in the pinned comment. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.